This week on Morning Mika, it's The Apprentices.
The American dream is dead.
The American dream has turned into a nightmare.
My official Trump digital trading cards are $99, which doesn't sound like very much for what you're getting.
Well, hi, I'm Christine Noem. I'm the governor of South Dakota and had the opportunity to come to Smile, Texas to fix my teeth, which has been absolutely amazing.
Can you see the spirit from the hostages? And that's what they are, is hostages.
I have concerns about the treatment of January 6 hostages.
Auditions for Republican running mate are in full swing. What it says about the party in the age of Donald Trump. How low will they go and still have fabulous teeth? Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris makes an historic show of support for abortion health care. How the Biden campaign is turning the tables on the GOP when it comes to personal freedom. I'm Mika Brzezinski here with Simone Sanders Townsend, Huma Abedin, and Jen Psaki. And we begin with a powerful conversation with Arizona State Senator Eva Birch that happened on Morning Joe earlier this week. She shared in vivid detail her own abortion health care story. The mother of two explained how so many politicians simply don't understand how a woman's body works. So she decided to teach and preach. Here are her remarks, followed by our conversation.
I don't know how many of you know this, but a few weeks ago I learned that, against all odds, I am pregnant. Many of you know that I've had kind of a rough journey with fertility. I had my first miscarriage more than 13 years ago, and I have been pregnant many times since then. Twice I was lucky enough to successfully carry to term, and I have two beautiful, healthy little boys. Now, I wish I could tell you otherwise, but after numerous ultrasounds and blood draws, we have determined that my pregnancy is once again not progressing and is not viable. I don't know how many of you have been unfortunate enough to experience a miscarriage before, but I am not interested in going through it unnecessarily. And right now, the safest and most appropriate treatment for me, and the treatment that I choose, is abortion. But the laws that this legislature has passed has interfered with my ability to do that, along with countless others. Arizonans deserve the freedom and the liberty to make those decisions for themselves.
In some cases, if a woman does not have the termination, the abortion that she needs for her health care, she's left sterilized, or she's left in a position where she has to bring a baby to term that will die. These are the realities that women who have fetal abnormalities have to deal with now because of the overturning of Roe. I'm curious, had you not had the abortion, what was the fate you were facing?
I was inevitably going to have a miscarriage. There's no question about whether or not I was going to be able to carry to term. I was not. I've had miscarriages before, and that was not something that I was interested in putting myself through again. It was an extremely traumatic experience for me. It's painful, it's frightening. I've been to the emergency department. I've had just very negative experiences having to go through miscarriages in the past, and having an abortion was a much better option for me, something that I felt comfortable with, something that was the right choice, the right decision for me in my circumstance. There was not going to be any scenario under which I was going to be able to carry a baby to term. So abortion was the choice that made the most sense to me.
Okay, so I want to frame that a little bit if I could, because you have been so generous with your personal information and sharing this on this show as well as in your state on the floor. You would have miscarried. You were sure to miscarry had you not had what yesterday was an outpatient procedure that went well for you, so well that you're on national television right now. Instead, you would have been waiting for an experience that would have been shocking, may I add, if I am right, traumatic, and also unexpected. You don't know when it's going to happen. And possibly would it, I want those on the far right who somehow have dreamed up that this is part of their religion, which it's not, okay? We can just put that to the side and have that debate another day if you think it's your religion, all right? And now look at this woman here who is healthy, who is speaking about her experience of going and getting a healthy abortion health care, so she's not in the position of bleeding out in some way or having a miscarriage at the drop of a hat. Eva, I don't understand why this is hard, and I'm sorry to take your graphic story, perhaps make it even more graphic, but I think the vividness of what you're talking about is what we all need to talk about. And I'll say it again and again. It's healthcare. It's abortion healthcare. To never say that word without attaching healthcare to it, to remind those that they have someone in their life who might need an abortion. That it doesn't only apply to people on the left who are bad and sacrilegious in some way. It's not your religion, by the way. But people on the right who are somehow still holding on to this abortion as evil concept are going to have someone close to them or even themselves who are going to need one in order to be able to have more children in the future or to not die or bleed out. Am I making myself clear, Eva? And also, I just want to thank you for helping explain this.
No, of course I agree with you. And I don't mind sharing the details of my story. I knew when I stood up, even though it was a vulnerable moment, everybody can hear my voice shaking. Everybody can hear me kind of hyperventilating through it. It is a vulnerable moment for me. But I knew when I decided to stand up and share that story that I was sharing my journey, my experience. I was still pregnant at the time of that speech. I'm here with you today, having had the procedure yesterday. I want people to have a more accurate picture of what the abortion patient looks like, because I do think that there is this narrative that people who are against abortion want to push about who the abortion patient is and what that looks like. And we have to combat that because it's inaccurate.
Jen Psaki, you were on that show during that interview. And I mean, the bottom line is everything that deniers will deny about abortion. This woman needed the termination. She was destined to miscarry. And she had an abortion the day before she did this interview, came on national television the next day because it was outpatient. And it was a perfectly normal healthcare experience that she went through to avoid a traumatic miscarriage. Had she not had the abortion, she wouldn't have been on our show. She wouldn't be able to go to work because she'd be waiting to miscarry. I know this sounds like I'm being repetitive, but the point is, I think the vivid detail of abortion health care is the story that needs to be told.
Unquestionably. And I was watching you do that interview from sitting in the studio thinking, I was dumbstruck because she's so courageous, so well-spoken. And you asked the questions, Mika, that, people might feel awkward asking, but people need to ask about abortion health care and what the position that women are being put in. And she shared in specific detail her experience. And what's so striking to me about her story is that she talks about how the healthcare providers are uncomfortable too. Right? We're putting women in an awkward position, an uncomfortable, a devastating position, and also healthcare providers in an uncomfortable and awful position. And it really is these stories that, again, would probably not have been told just a couple of years ago that are going to move people out there. It's these stories, not that this is about politics, her story certainly isn't, but it's going to move people out there in a way that kind of data and, written print news stories about legislation may not, because you see people's faces, you hear their experience, you hear their devastation, and it's horrific. And that is what I think is going to get women out and motivated come November as well.
Huma, the word abortion, just to the politics of this, has been poisoned by members of the far right, so-called Christians who call it evil. And that's why I say, call it abortion health care. To me, when we look at the election, the presidential election this November, we're looking at a choice about democracy, and we're also looking about getting our rights back or not.
I remember in 2016 when Hillary was running for president, and she said the word that protecting women's health care had to include the word abortion, that protecting a woman's right to receive an abortion in this country, and tying it to what you just said, Mika, in part to an economic issue, that it's better for women themselves, for their families, for their communities, and ultimately for our country to allow them to make the decision that is right for themselves. I think it's incredible that the vice president traveled to a Planned Parenthood. Look, I don't know about Psaki or Simone, but as an adult woman growing up in this country, I didn't think that, going to get an abortion would have to be such a big, news story for an elected official to go to. But that's where we are in this country, because it is so divided. And I think to take an issue that is maybe one of the few things that is a bipartisan issue that we know that, I think just yesterday, the Florida Supreme Court was hearing whether to put abortion on the ballot in November. 7 states have already done it. So it is what not just is personal freedom, but I think what is core to our democracy and something that we've been clearly fighting for longer than the last few years. And so good for them. I hope they keep talking about it every day until November.
Truly, Huma. For me, between the story that the representative in Arizona told, her personal story, so courageous to tell it. She could have gone through what she went through and didn't share it with anyone. And coupled with the vice president visiting that Planned Parenthood in Minnesota, you're putting a face to what people usually are trying to demonize in the press. A lot of some of the Republican elected officials across the country, especially Republicans in Congress, Planned Parenthood has been in the crosshairs of them for literally years. There were consecutive congressional sessions where folks tried to defund Planned Parenthood because they offer full service health care, which does include an abortion. And so the vice president, I think the biggest thing that a president or a vice president can do, the president sans, signing historic legislation, right, and getting things, helping push to get things passed, is use their time to elevate issues. And the vice president physically going into that Planned Parenthood clinic, meeting people, hearing their stories, and then coming out, and she, I believe, took 20 minutes to address the reporters that were with her, talking about how this is a scary time for women in America, and women know better. These politicians think they know better than the women, and whoever you voted for in the last election, that message had to have resonated with you across the country, especially if you are a woman who's wondering, am I going to be able to make the decisions about my own life?
Exactly. Here's Vice President Kamala Harris inside an abortion health care clinic, redefining what personal freedom is all about.
It is only right and fair that people have access to the health care they need, and that they have access to health care in an environment where they are treated with dignity and respect.
All right, now let's move on to the apprentices running for vice president. Apparently to be considered, and this is on the Republican side, of course, you better toe the line. It's not just copying Donald Trump's talking points or trying to hawk stuff on social media or get teeth implants. You publicly have to back the ex-president, no matter how destructive his behavior. Take a look.
I'm asking you a very simple question.
And I answered it. You're shaming me for my political choices.
I'm asking you a question about why you endorse someone who's been found liable for rape.
It was not a criminal court.
Jen Psaki, what I'm most worried about, let alone whoever he chooses to be vice president, and how low they will go or even weaponize their own stories when necessary. My biggest question is what I see happening in Congress is a bench being built. From the Republican response to the State of the Union to whatever that was we just saw, to Marjorie Taylor Greene, to this relentless pursuit of Hunter Biden. It seems to me that Republicans are learning from the Wizard of Oz, that you can make up stuff, and then when you're called out on lying, you can just lie again.
Exactly. I mean, first of all, it's the party of MAGA. It's the party of Trump now. That is the Republican Party. Are there people who don't support Trump? Sure, there are, but it's not the majority. And I think it's important to state that. I think what we're seeing here, Mika, is a bunch of enablers and enabling him in a way where they are putting their own, at times, political views, personal views, moral views aside to either please him or not seek his eye or not acquire his ire. And that's a very dangerous. That has led them, as we all know, to whatever just happened there, as we've all seen many times with Congresswoman Nancy Mace, who went through something horrific and then decided that the choice was then to defend somebody who was a sexual assaulter. So there's that. But also even on policy substance, right? I mean, they have now become the party that's defending Putin. That's bizarre. If you look at 10 years ago, they've become the party that is looking the other way when you have somebody who's echoing Hitler. I don't think this is what they all believe in private. We know it's not. But they have allowed it to take over them in order to please the wizard.
Simone, no matter who is chosen on the Republican side as the vice presidential pick, what's the opportunity here for Kamala Harris, who I see is increasingly getting her voice heard, becoming a stronger messenger on key issues, and key issues that I think are true to her own personal beliefs?
Yeah, I mean, if you talk to activists, organizers, and even elected officials prior to the midterms, they will tell you that it was the vice president who was traveling around the country talking about the issue of reproductive freedom, meeting with state legislators, talking about giving them ideas about how they can strategize and block a number of the things that are happening. And we all saw that in the midterm elections, abortion was a key issue, and it blunted that red wave. Whoever the vice presidential pick is, usually, now these are not normal times, but usually there's going to be one vice presidential debate where whoever Donald Trump chooses will sit on a debate stage with Vice President Kamala Harris. And let me tell you, I prepped then Senator Harris for that last debate against Mike Pence, and there were viral moments from there. Everybody remembers the I'm speaking. And so that will be an opportunity to see a very clear contrast. One, in a vice president and Vice President Harris, who is leading on a number of issues, who is you know, literally, as Joe Biden has said, in his belief, ready to be president on day one. And then whomever Donald Trump chooses, who we know is just going to parrot his very extreme beliefs that are currently being centered within the Republican Party apparatus, and voters are going to have a choice. Very clear.
Okay, before we go to break, can anyone explain the Kristi Noem tooth commercial on social media? Anybody?
Didn't feel real.
The teeth were nice. The teeth were nice.
What's that?
It was really uncomfortable.
I know. I did. The close-up.
Yeah.
I'm so confused.
The close-up, Mika. It was the close-up for me. I was like, what is happening here? Maybe she's an influencer for this place in Texas doing the teeth, honey. We don't know.
No, we don't know.
I need
It's
to
a
get
mystery.
mine done, but okay. I'm just going to leave it right there.